And our speaker today, Nancy Price, recently completed 7 years with the League of Women Voters Metro St. Louis Executive Board. She continues to chair their Speakers Bureau, and in addition, Nancy works to promote voter access to and knowledge of voting for the differently abled. She is passionate about helping those in Missouri who were formerly incarcerated to regain their voting rights. She holds a Bachelor of Science and 2 Master of Science degrees in plant physiology, biochemistry, and management. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our speaker, Nancy Price.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I guess it's noon now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started. Well, now it doesn't seem to be here.
Do you have the share option?
Yeah, I thought okay, let's go back because we just did this.
We did.
How can it not work? All right, I'm going to start again. See, I don't know where my file went. Oh, goodness. I've never had exactly this happen. All right.
Let's see.
I'm going to the screen and see if I can find.
You said you have the share option below?
Let's see. All right, so that's open. Now I don't see the share option. Let me see. Okay, there it is. Okay, sorry for all the confusion. So I'm going to speak first about the things that pretty much everybody has to deal with, which is like voter registration, timelines, things like that. And then I'm going to move on to more specifics for people with various disabilities. I will say that this is like a really broad topic and I am learning. So feel free to share if I'm missing something or saying something incorrectly. So this is for the November 5th election. And we really strongly feel at the League of Women Voters that democracy works best when everybody participates equally. And there are obviously all kinds of categories of people that I guess are less valued in society. And that really doesn't agree with what we feel. We feel very strongly that not just disabilities, but all kinds of other things should not discriminate, that everyone should be able to vote. We are nonpartisan. We've been around for a little over 100 years. We were formed right after women got the constitutional amendment to vote, although there were women voting before that. And the thing was that all these women got a right to vote, but they needed to be educated on how to vote and how to learn about issues and candidates so that they could vote. But we have had male members for 50 years, and they are definitely some of our best members. So my role is to help everyone be able to vote. My role is not to tell you how to vote. We are nonpartisan. So the first thing we suggest is that everybody makes a plan. You can go online and check your voter registration with your Board of Elections or the Secretary of State. You can either register or update your registration. Sorry, that didn't change that when I updated this from the last election. But you can do both of those things online. If you move from, all our records are held by counties. St. Louis City is its own county, separate from St. Louis County. And so if you move from the city to the county, or the county to the city, or to St. Charles, or any of those things, you need to register and update your registration, because that determines what ballot you will be voting. So if you move, a lot of times your school district might move or might change. So that's why it's important to keep your information updated. You can vote absentee if you're unable to vote on election day. There are two ways to do that. One is called the permanent disability list, and one is called just an absentee ballot if you are going to be out of town that day or something like that. And also on Vote 411, which is something that we put together, you can look up, put in your address, and it will type out your ballot. Everything that's going to be on it, the people that you can pick for candidates, and the issues. So you cannot cast that, but you can print it and take it with you. It also allows you to do some research on these things. It doesn't come online till closer to an election because we have to gather this information. But, so here you can check your voter registration. You can register to vote. Now the calendar for November 5th, they just finalized what's going to be on the ballot last Tuesday. And then in September 24th, absentee voting with an excuse opens. October 9th is the last day to register to vote. So that's an important thing for people. If you send it in by mail, it's a postmark. If you do it electronically, it's right away. And if you mail it, I'm sorry, if you just deliver it, that's different. But those are how you know what date you have to have your registration in. Absentee voting with an excuse, which is more or less it is a one-time thing. That begins on the 22nd, and vote411.org, which is the information site that has information about candidates and ballot issues, will come online October 22nd. And then October 20th. October 22nd, we have currently, and it may go away, 2 weeks of in-person voting where you don't have to have an excuse. And you can just vote early, and it's from the Monday before, 2 weeks before election day, and it ends on the day before election day. So that's something new, fairly new. If you haven't voted recently, you may not be aware of that. And the last day to apply for a mailed absentee ballot, like if you want them to send it to you and then you're going to send it back, the last day to do that is October 23rd. So let's see. Here are some of the big dates. Absentee voting starts. That's the mail-in. Last day to register to vote is October 9th. A mail-in absentee request deadline, and no excuse in-person voting begins, and it ends the day before election day. So how do you register to vote? Well, the key thing is the records are kept by county. So you need to be registered in the county where you live. If you change your address, it's good to change it to update your ballot address. But if you move to a different county, you just plain have to go and re-register, although you can do that online. It's just an address change, but it's going to put you in a different county. Register online on your Board of Elections, or if you're a smaller area of the state, They might just have a county clerk. What you need is the last 4 digits of your social security or Missouri driver's license or state ID so that they can find you and make sure that you're real. If you are unhoused, there are several shelters that will let you receive mail at their facility. And if you talk to them and they say that they'll do that, then you would use their address for your voter registration. Your ID, like if you have a driver's license or a state ID, the address on that ID does not have to match. It's just for the photo. So you don't have to change your driver's license when you move just so you can vote. There are a couple of places in the county, because I know that VOYCE is in the county. In St. Louis County, New Life Evangelistic Center in Woodson, on Woodson Road in Overland, and the Salvation Army Family Haven, which is at 10740 Page Avenue, will both allow you to use their facility address. In the city, St. Patrick's Center and Biddle Housing are two of the places. There may be other places. And in St. Charles, the Salvation Army on 4th Street. So if you're in between addresses, you can still vote as long as you have an address where you can get mail, because that is how the Board of Elections communicates with you. So who can vote? Well, you can check your voter registration to see if it's current. The people who can vote, if you're a citizen of the United States of America, which is a U.S. national law. If you're registered Missouri resident, that's a state law that's already in place. And if you're at least 17 and a half years old, you can register, but you can't actually vote until you're 18. So you can register online, you can register on paper, you can print the form and fill it out. A designated state agency like a Board of Elections or whatever, and most public libraries. If you are off papers, which means that you have been convicted of a felony, you are allowed to get your vote back. You just have to go and take care of business, go down to the Board of Elections and tell them that you want to register. Possibly your registration from before you were incarcerated is still there and can be reactivated. The myth is in Missouri is that when you are convicted of a felony, you permanently lose your right to vote. That is definitely not true. The only time that's true is if you're convicted of a felony that's related to voting. And then you're really kind of out of luck. But once you're off papers, which means you have finished your supervision, you no longer have to report to your probation, parole, any of that, then you can go and register. What is best to do is to go to a Board of Elections or county clerk, because the Board of Elections can look online and make sure that there's no problem, that the computer isn't wrong, that you're going to be, somehow tangled up because you're legitimately able to vote, but maybe the computer's wrong. So the best thing is to go to the Board of Elections. You don't have to, but that's, to me, that's the safest thing to make sure you're doing everything correctly. What you need to vote, in order to vote, is a photo or ID. And Missouri has recently excluded student IDs and utility bills, and also even the card that they send you to tell you where you vote. And I think they're even excluding sending those out sometimes. So you have to have a photo ID that is either issued by the federal government or Missouri government. So that means in Missouri, for the local government, it has to be a state ID or it has to be a driver's license. And if you don't have either of those, you can get a state ID for free if you go in and say, I need it to vote, but they're not going to volunteer that. The other things you can have are a passport from the feds or military papers, like an ID that shows you're in the military. For all of those, it must be unexpired since if it's been expired since before November of 2022, then you can't use it. If you're over 70, you can get a non-expiring non-driver ID. What if you registered? You're okie dokie with that, but you don't have an acceptable ID that you can show. Well, not doing it during the 2 weeks of early voting, but on election day, you can go to the polls. And if you are on the registry, you don't have to show an ID. You can vote what's called a provisional ballot. A provisional ballot is not immediately counted. The way it gets counted is one of two things. If you come back before the polls close and you do bring an acceptable ID, say it's at home, sitting on your bureau when you go to vote, you can go home and get it and bring it back before the polls close. Or if that doesn't work, they will check your signature on the outside of the ballot envelope, which is all sealed, so they can't see who you voted for. If that signature matches the signatures on file where you have voted in the past and all with the Board of Elections, then it will be counted. And basically most of those are counted, very rarely not. There's something called the permanent disability list, which it sounds pretty bad, but you don't have to be extremely disabled. You can just be someone who can't stand in line for like 45 minutes or half an hour or whatever it takes. You don't need a doctor's note. You can just apply for it. It is kept in the county where you're voting. So if you move counties, you have to reapply for this list. What they will do is each time there is an election for the address on file, they will send you an application, not a ballot. They will send you an application for a ballot. And then if you fill it out and return it, they will send you a ballot. So you won't miss anything. And your ballot has to be received in the election authority by the close of polls on election day, or it will not be counted. If it's not there by like 7 o'clock on that Tuesday, it's not going to count. So what you can do are a couple of things. One is you can drop it off in person. You can, if you lost it for some reason, or you failed to turn in the application so you didn't get one, you can show up at the polls and you can vote. You can even, if you marked the red ticket and you now want to be the blue ticket, you can take that in if you have not sent it in to the polls and tell them that you want it to be spoiled, which is destroyed, and you want to get a fresh ballot and vote differently. the way to look at it is you have one car parking spot. You only have one spot. So the first car in there is it. So whatever ballot is counted first is the only ballot that will count. So if you mail it in and then you walk in, no, you don't get 2 votes. Okay, here are some reasons why you might want to do absentee voting for a single election, which may be not so applicable to people with disabilities. But if you are going to be absent on voting day from the jurisdiction, which say you vote in St. Louis City, you're spending the day in St. Louis County, you are absent from the jurisdiction. This is one that's going to cover a lot of people with disabilities who are not, for whatever reason, on the permanent disability list, incapacity or confinement due to physical illness or disability. This is the only reason that you don't have to have your signature notarized on this entire list. Everybody else needs to get this to a notary. Religious beliefs, employment by the election authority, basically you're working that day. Incarcerated, but remain qualified to vote. If you get picked up and you're being held in a jail, but you have not been to trial, you're still innocent unless there's something older on your sheet. So you are incarcerated in the sense that you can't leave, but you're not guilty. So you haven't lost your right to vote. So those people can vote in absentee. And there's also something called the Address Confidentiality Program, which is, you can find out from the Secretary of State. Now, there's something that I think this is a weird name, but to me, it's an oxymoron. In person, no excuse, absentee. The in person and absentee is a little confusing, but what this means is the 2 weeks before the election day, which in November will be October 22nd to November 4th, because the 5th is election day, you can vote early. And you do need a valid ID, but you don't need an excuse. If you don't have an acceptable photo ID, you cannot do the provisional ballot. You cannot vote during those 2 weeks. If that's a problem, that you can go on election day and do the signature match. Okay, so on election day, now we're past the 2 weeks of early in-person absentee. In St. Louis and City County only, not the rest of the state, we have what's called Vote Anywhere. What they have done is they've taken COVID money and they've bought new equipment that prints on demand. So you go in and you tell them where you live and it custom prints your ballot right there. That is why it doesn't matter which polling place you go to. They don't have to have stacks of, 5 of these and 10 of these. So that is why you can do Vote Anywhere for elections, but only in the city and the county. On election day, you can go to any voting place, not just your polling place. And you can find out where the different places are at your election authority. They have all this posted. Also allows people to go with a family or friends, even if they previously had different polling places. Like I work with a lot of seniors and they don't necessarily drive. Well, their adult child may take them, but their adult child may be at this polling place and they're at another. Now, one-stop shopping, you can go to whichever place you both want to go to. Voters in other counties across the state still have to go to their assigned polling places. And polls are open 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you're in line at 7 p.m., they have to stay open and let you vote. Don't go home. Here's where we're talking a little bit about disabilities. I'm going to show you some of this information, but there is help at the polling places for voters with limited or no vision, a learning disability, limited use of your hands. Anyone is allowed to bring into the voting booth a person of their choice, except your boss, to help you mark your ballot. So you can, if you want, take a person of your choice with you. There's also curbside voting. In the city, they have doorbells, which are little things that you can, you drive next to it and ring the doorbell, and they'll bring out an iPad. They have to bring a Republican and a Democrat to make sure you're not being pressured, and you can vote in your car. Wheelchair accessible voting booths are also available. The desktop is lower. This is information I'm going to hook to in a minute on our website. You can hear audio recordings of voter information. You can request large print voter information. That's our office number. And you can request a copy of Braille voter information. These are not ballots. And we have those in the office. So I'll be hooking, here we go. I'll be hooking you up to our website. Okay, this is our website. It's lwvstl.org. And you want to go, I think it's under this elections pull down. There's the voters with disabilities. So we are going to be having a statewide webinar September 21st, which is a Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. You can register to come. It's open to anyone. We really want to give everyone a lot of support so they know how to vote. There is a fact sheet for voters with disabilities. Okay, and this is Paraquad helped with this. So this talks about the different things: help marking your ballot, curbside voting, wheelchair accessible, large print, some of the benefits of the specialized booths if you have like hand issues. So anyway, this information is all there. Let me see if I can, oops. It won't go back for some reason on this link. We also have audio recordings, voter information, large print. We are located fairly close to you. We're at Manchester. We're on Manchester, just east of Brentwood. So all this information is available. We also have several other pieces of information. So I'm going to encourage everyone who can to go to that link and read more details. Oops, really shouldn't have that up there. Oh, well. Okay, here's some information on rides to the polls in the St. Louis City and County, A. Philip Randolph Institute They have volunteer drivers that take people for free rides to the polls, of course, because they're volunteers. It's good to let them know early. As far as I know, they're really due election day. I'm not sure if they do like the 2 weeks prior. And there's another site called state MORides.org. They do statewide. You put in your address and they'll show you a list of places that provide rides. You can look at those. It's not just for voting day, but I asked my friend that uses, needs a driving ride, and she's not familiar with this, but I have it from a pretty good source that it's okay. So you can check that out. Then I was asked some about if you have legal problems. Well, there is a group called Election Protection. It's a national, actually, and we have Missouri Election Protection, and it's called MOVPC, Missouri Voter Protection. You can call them, especially around an election. They are staffed by lawyers and they can answer questions. We get a lot of questions on registration or voting day. And then the rest of the year, we have Missouri Voter Protection. You can text to 66866 and they'll tell you how to get on the, well, it's a lot of information, but they'll tell you how to get on the mailing list. They have a lot of legal information and what the legislature is doing, things like that. They have Monday morning Zoom meetings at 10 a.m. They're a big group. They're a wonderful resource and very inclusive. Everyone's welcome. The last thing is you can sign up with the league to get reminders. You only get like 2 or 3. You don't get as many as you get for money requests. Like check your registration, and then do you need to get an absentee ballot? Don't forget to apply and then go vote. That's pretty much what we send. So I want to thank you all for coming, and just to leave you with, each person who casts a vote is equal to every other voter. It's a great equalizer. But if you don't use it, then it's not going to help you. So there we are. I'm going to put up contact information. Lower right is our website and our other things that we do. Okay, I'm going to turn it back.
Thank you so much, Nancy. We really appreciate all of your expertise. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. We can ask Nancy while she's here. But hopefully everybody was able to write down that information. And if not, I can send an email to all of our participants with everything that you need to know, all the information. So yeah.